So you guys remember the other week when Tucker Carlson went on Joe Rogan's show, and we did a breakdown of a lot of the stuff he said on the show. There were a handful of moments that were good moments, like when he said dropping nukes on innocent civilians is bad. I love how that's a thought that's considered like, oh, that's a good point. Not mass murdering hundreds of thousands of innocent people. That's a good point. That's where we're at now with the national discourse and dialogue, is that you need somebody to say that, and then we'll give them credit. Because the default is, of course, what are you talking about? We do atrocities all the time, right? So that was one of the good moments. He had other moments that were weird, calling Alex Jones a prophet, basically. He tried to argue against evolution, which is like, what are you doing, bro? Jesus Christ, that was bizarre and dumb. But anyway, so he does a podcast with friend of the show, Dave Smith here, and he's reflecting on the fact that of all the things he said, there's one thing that the right seized on and they were really pissed over. Gee, take a guess which thing they were really pissed over. It was the don't massacre civilians point. It's insane. Anyway, so here he is reflecting on that, and he makes some interesting points.
I had a thoroughly bizarre experience the other day, and maybe you can shed light on what it means, because I don't fully understand it. But I was doing Rogan's podcast at your urging, so thank you for that. I had a great time.
I love the podcast.
Yeah, it was super, super fun, but it was very long. It was like 3 hours long, and I can't stop talking, so I'm right, another thing, and I'm going on about whatever, And at one point, I just blurted out for like 15 seconds something I've thought about recently, which is the use of the nuclear bombs, one time they have been used, in August of 1945 against Hiroshima and then Nagasaki. Complex topic, a lot of it's not publicly well known, okay, but just the bottom line fact that we dropped, this particularly the bomb on Nagasaki, which was the Christian capital of Japan, by the way. That bomb was dropped on a church and killed, 3/4 of the Christians in the city, which bothers me as a Christian. But leaving even that aside, it killed civilians. It wasn't dropped on a military base. It was killed civilians. And I get why people did it, or maybe I don't get it, but I think 80 years later, we can say it's not something to brag about, incinerating civilians. I don't care what the context is. That's evil. That's basically all I said. Holy shit. Did I get attacked from the right? And I thought, and I don't even follow the attacks on me ever, but I kept getting texts from people. Oh, I can't believe you said that. Or people are mad at you for saying that. And I thought, of all the dumb, cruel, untrue things I have said over 30 years of just talking in public, a lot of which I regret, and I hope I've apologized for every bad thing I've said, but I've said a lot of really things are impossible to defend. That's what they attack me on?
Yeah.
What is that?
Well, and just the fact, even as you're saying, again, if you want to attack you on something like, hey, you supported the war in Iraq.
Oh, shit.
There's a thing I really got this wrong. And what a twisted society we
I
live in.
defended Mitt Romney when he ran.
Yeah. But guys, all of the people who got all of these wars wrong don't receive as much outrage as you for saying after the war was won. And by the way, if you know anything about it, it was 5-star general Dwight Eisenhower was against the nuke. He said it was unnecessary. They were ready to negotiate a surrender. We didn't need to do this. But also there's just
but I didn't even get into the details of that
you
specific
were just saying
thing.
It's wrong on its face.
Exactly. I was just the principle of using nuclear weapons against a civilian population. You could construct in your mind a scenario where you could justify it, I guess. But it's still sort of, in the cold light of day, hard to defend incinerating civilians. By the way, with incendiary bombs too, or conventional bombs, as in Dresden, or it's just bad. Why would that make people on the right so mad?
Because they support killing civilians. I mean, look, I've told you guys this a million times. I'll say it a million more because it's true. But I was incredibly naive for so long where, as I always say, I take people at face value. If you say your position is X, I'll assume your position is X. I'll discuss with you or argue with you in good faith. But the fact of the matter is, and what's happened in Gaza has been a real eye-opener on this front, is that there are a lot of genocide supporters out there. There are. Now, they might swear up and down in 57 ways that they're not genocide supporters, but if at the end of the day you are functionally supporting Netanyahu bombing schools and mosques and churches and hospitals and UN buildings and factories and homes and destroying all of North Gaza and making 2 million Gazans homeless out of 2.3 million and killing 43,000 Palestinians, 39,000 civilians, 16,000 children, 10,000 women. If you're defending a tactic of collective punishment and mass starvation of the population of 2.3 million Gazans when there's only 30,000 Hamas members, at some point, we need to be willing to call a spade a spade. And calling a spade in this instance is saying, you guys support war crimes. You guys support genocide. Now, look, to somebody who's an outside observer who's not familiar with the facts, they might hear me say that, and they might think, well, that's incendiary, or that's not fair, you're going too far, you're maligning their motivations or their intentions or whatever. And in the past, that was old school Kyle. Old school Kyle would be the one making that accusation. Old school Kyle would be the one saying, hey, maybe that's not quite fair, etc. But based on everything that we've seen since then, my contention is it's undeniable. There are some people who support genocide. They just out and out support it. And the whole boatload of justifications and rationalizations, they are well versed in that entire fucking tap dance. And they can run you through it every step of the way. And to Tucker's point, yeah, the reason why they're arguing with you over that point, Tucker, is because they support genocide. They supported the bombing of innocent civilians in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They are okay with the fact that hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians, including many, many women and children, that they were killed in an instant. And their heads exploded. That's the answer. By the same token, today, there's a lot of people supporting the genocide of Gaza. They don't view Palestinians as fully human. You know, they, like I said, they have all these rationalizations. Hey, they're from a Muslim background and Muslim culture, and they are actually the primitive ones, and they are the reactionary ones, and they devalue women, and they have a ideology that is dangerous by its very nature, and they are the forces of darkness, and we are the forces of light, and everything you could possibly think of. It's not like the monsters throughout history who do evil things. It's not like they wake up in the morning and say, I am evil and I'm going to do evil things, right? They have their own complex web of reasons to get them to the point where they would do these horrific things. And that's exactly the same thing now. In retrospect, we all look at Hitler and we go, that was a fucking monster. That was a barbaric, savage, monster, war criminal, genocidal freak. But he had his reasons at the time. But we correctly say now, fuck your reasons. They're fucking stupid, and there's nothing that could justify what you did. The thing that conservatives never will grapple with is the U.S. falls in that category in many instances as well, like the nuking of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Israel and the U.S. fall in that category right now with the arming and funding of a genocide in Gaza. It's just the reality. It's just the reality of it. And so what's interesting here is Dave Smith is a libertarian. Libertarians are typically very good on foreign policy issues. You know, I'm somebody who's on the left, and there's usually a lot of agreement between libertarians and leftists when it comes to foreign policy. And Tucker is more of like a paleoconservative. Now, you can argue over that, the finer points of that, because he supports Donald Trump, and Donald Trump is actually a neocon, even though he pretends to be a paleocon. And if you're supporting Trump, it's like, are you effectively supporting neoconservative policies? So there's a debate to be had about where Tucker actually, what his positions actually are because of who he supports, right? But for the sake of this conversation, let's just say he's a paleoconservative. This is a paleoconservative and a libertarian and me, a leftist, all looking at each other and going, yeah, these fucking neocons are absolutely genocidal. They're absolutely psychopathic. And they will even fight with you on what should, at face value, be the most obviously correct position ever. When you say killing civilians is wrong as a matter of principle, they object to that. And that, I can't take you seriously, and I can't respect you if that's your position. I just can't. Because what you're doing in that instance is you are unwilling to do the basic moral and intellectual exercise of saying, what if those civilians being killed, what if it was me? What if it was my mom? What if it was my dad? What if it was my kids? What if it was my grandma? What if it was all my best friends? Because fundamentally, for you to take that position, you have to dehumanize the innocent civilians who you're willing to massacre, right? And look, call it what it is. The Ben Shapiro types, they've gone fully down that path. They've lost their humanity. It's all a game to them. It's all a game. And it shows like a fundamental weakness if you're unwilling to sign off on the massacre or the starvation of innocent civilians. So, look, I'm not going to hold my breath, but hopefully that's an eye-opening moment for Tucker, right? Where he realizes, hey, look around you, bro. Look around you. These are the people in the same room as you in the same political movement. By the way, your boy Trump, who you support, he's running around saying Joe Biden is anti-Israel and pro-Hamas and pro-terrorist, and that Trump, will give way more to Israel, give them way more money, give them way more weapons, support them harder. So the guy who you're supporting right now functionally it takes the exact opposite perspective when it comes to the murder of civilians. He's totally fine with it. I remember when he ran in 2015 and 2016, he was on Fox and Friends, and he said, forget the terrorists, we have to take out their families. We have to take out their families. That's that same position that you're castigating right now. And you're saying is dumb and evil right now. That's Trump's position. So, anyway, it's funny watching him be like kind of flabbergasted. Turns out these people are absolute monsters. Yeah. I mean, that's been relatively clear for quite a while now. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.